This is going to be Vodcast number 2 in a series of the benefits of arts education on the student. Today I have Wayne Toews with me. It is March 10th and a beautiful sunny Sunday morning. And good morning, Wayne.
Good morning. It's good to hear your voice.
Wayne, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I suppose from a music education point of view, I studied in Saskatoon and also at Northwestern University in Chicago. I taught at City Park Collegiate for 7 years and then 25 years at Eden Bowman Collegiate. I directed the Saskatoon Youth Orchestra for 25 years. So I've had a broad range of experiences in different genres of music and with different levels and ages of performers. I conducted the Saskatoon Symphony on several occasions, and I currently have a school for conductors, and I've had an opportunity to work with conductors all over the world. A year ago, I was in Salvador Bahia, Brazil, working with the Neo Juba group to create a conducting component to their program.
Oh, that's really fascinating. So you've worked with all kinds of people all over the world. That's great.
I have, yes.
I'm specifically focusing on the benefits of arts education and the impact on the student. Immediately, what comes to mind when you think of that topic?
I think of the relationships, and I think that the relationships that we have an opportunity to build through an arts education are incredibly important. We look at who is part of our community, who are our supporters. Sometimes people think of community from an economic basis or something that has some kind of benefit to them individually, but the idea of being valued as part of a group or an ensemble, I think, is really important. Last year, my colleague Sharon Fitzsimmons published a little book that's called It Made Me Laugh, It Made Me Cry, Stories from the Music Room. And there's some very touching stories about relationships and things that I suppose people have found important. And one of my contributions in it includes a note I received from a young woman in 2004. And she said, "Then in grade 12 you did something I will never forget. You were leading the smaller group of more talented singers you'd chosen from our class. And after going through one run of a song, you paused, you turned around and looked at me, you asked me to join the group. I've never told you, but I was so touched and so overwhelmed by the gesture that I went home and cried that whole night. You had faith in me, and you had given me more in that one gesture than my parent had given me my entire life." So I think that we're looking at developing human beings. We're looking at supporting the development of human beings and celebrating the kinds of things that they do with their talents. So I think that in the long term, it has a lot to do with quality relationships that result in confidence and opportunities for the people we work with.
So, Wayne, why do you think it is that often when financial hard times come around, that the arts are kind of like the first line to take a hit? Why are they receiving a lesser status than some of the core subject areas?
I suggest that that's true in some places, but certainly not in others. Mm-hmm. And again, it has a lot to do with a sense of community support. You know, in Saskatchewan, back in the 1950s, we had very large community band programs, often run by people who were amateurs and not necessarily very experienced, but certainly very passionate. And so we had these large groups that were a community-based situation. They obviously cherished their opportunity to make music with all the generations together in one ensemble. So I think that the tragedy in places where it is cut is a lack of understanding of the long-term benefits, but also a kind of situation that has a lot of political ramifications. And it has to do with what do we believe a quality education involves, what are the opportunities, what are the experiences that people have to have a quality education. And it's not a topic which has been generally discussed, certainly among school board people and administrators. And frankly, it seems to be an easier target because people think of it as something you do after you've done the hard work. And so that they understand that there is a joy involved in the arts and certainly a personal satisfaction. But I think a lot of people feel that they don't need to have an education or training in the arts in order to enjoy it or to benefit from it.
So you mentioned the elements of a good education. So what do you think the elements of a good education are? Beyond those rich experiences that we get in the fine arts, what do you think the elements of a good education are?
Well, we heard for years reading, writing, and arithmetic. And there's no question that we're looking at new situations because of the new media. We could think about broadly the communication situation as opposed to just the reading and writing. Certainly, if we're going to become effective communicators, we need to look at a variety of opportunities. And from my perspective, the idea of being a communicator has a lot to do with developing a sense of self-confidence. So that something such as a drama program where people are actually having to stand up and speak seems to be of incredible value. So knowing about ourselves is one of the critical aspects of the arts. And I believe that we can take a different kind of media as an opportunity to learn about ourselves and our world. And so there are people who do that through music, for example, where it can tie into things such as history and to some of the theoretical aspects that relate to sound, to the physics of sound, to mathematics, to other dimensions of science, including things such as the chemistry of varnish used on stringed instruments, and on and on. I think that the idea of an education is different than perhaps it used to be, because I think we've tried to distinguish between education and training, but that not everybody does that. Some people see the schooling as a way of getting a job. So does that involve education or does that involve training? And many places say, leave the training to us. Bring people with good attitudes, good work habits, and we'll have an opportunity to train them the way that we need them for our particular business. So the notion of quality education has a lot to do with the quality experiences and of motivating people to learn how to communicate with others, and I would suggest ways to get along with others as well. And that's where having an opportunity to be part of an ensemble, whether it's a drama cast or a choir or a band or an orchestra, is an opportunity to feel that you're part of a community. And I'm not sure that I've got a single answer to what a quality education involves, but I do know that it's changed a great deal since I was in high school, where most of our time seemed to be spent copying notes off the blackboard. And I would hope that that isn't still the case, although I think there is an opportunity to get some things into your brain better when you've actually taken the opportunity to write them down.
Certainly. And now you've mentioned community a few times, and with your connection to international connection, I should put it that way, do you find that the people that you've worked with, they feel that sense of community extends beyond their location, so that, you know, as we grow, especially as adults, it's difficult to find that connection of community. Do you find that that arts connection is able to keep people better in touch, better engaged with others?
You know, when I've worked with young people in adjudicating them in festivals, I've asked whether the qualities that I've observed in some of my students are true. And universally, the answer comes back yes. So the first question is, this is a group of very intelligent people. And they say yes, of course, they'd like to believe they are. And I also say that this is a group of very sensitive people, where emotions seem to be very important, or certainly override certain kinds of ways that people interact. And also that the people are very busy. And so, yes, I think that trying to find a soulmate in a different place where you've had certain kinds of experiences in the arts allows people to share things a little differently. You know, there are concepts of fine arts nerds, and it's really a fascinating notion that the arts leads us to ideas, and that sometimes it's important that we have an opportunity to explore those ideas with other people who are soulmates. When I was in Brazil, I worked with a program called Neo Jabá, and it's modeled on the fabulous orchestral program that comes out of Venezuela. And these programs are supported, funded by social services as opposed to education. And they give the young people an incredible sense of hope. But there's a lot of love between and among these people, a lot of respect. They've worked together, they've spent a lot of time working at things for which they've received a lot of credit. And it really makes them feel as if they have something important to contribute to their community and to the world. So, yes, I think that artists from around the world take inspiration from each other. We know that people in various arts have been inspired to create things based on, in their own medium, based on ideas that they've taken from other genres. So there's a sense that there's a community of people who are thinkers, who are doers, who are active in a creative kind of way. And the opportunity to be with soulmates is incredibly important to them.
Mm-hmm. You know, one thing that I have been constantly aware of just with the drama classes that I'm teaching is that the one thing that arts definitely provides is that sense of watching growth and seeing it in a more immediate setting. So let's say it were a math class, you might be building the foundational skills and you might not see any real reward from it until you come to testing. But with drama, you're building on those blocks where a shy student comes in and leaves a much more rewarded student, a much more self-fulfilled person who's able to not only work within the genre of drama, but has changed. Essentially, they've come out of their shell. And I'm not certain that that's an area that other core subjects can really touch on. And I've really been looking at the connection between that sense of self-fulfillment and self-efficacy and the connection to real happiness, which is essentially, I mean, we want our students to be fulfilled human beings more than just filled with knowledge human beings.
Absolutely. I regret the fact that there seems to be what we would call a curriculum war. And you addressed it about what gets eliminated when finances are tight. I think that from perspective of being a conductor, when I travel to different places in the world or communicate with different places in the world, I wish that I had a broader language training. I think that the people who I come into contact with are really keenly interested in a very broad range of topics and ideas that speaks to the importance of a breadth of an education. So the challenge then is how can we have people understand that working in some of these domains of the fine arts really has a lot to do with a wholesome human being, as opposed to somebody who has to choose between and among these different kinds of opportunities. And I think that it has a lot to do with the working relationships within individual schools. When I had an opportunity to teach in my first high school, I had a fabulous group of colleagues, and we celebrated each other and the kinds of things that our students were doing in a different kind of way. And when I was at Aidan Bowman Collegiate, one year, my top 3 trumpet players were also the first starters on the provincial winning basketball team. And one night when they had a team and we had they had a game and we had a concert, after they had established their winning ways, they came down and played in the concert and then went back to finish winning the basketball game. So it has a lot to do with the culture within the particular educational institution that really understands that our young people can benefit from this whole broad range of things. And of course, the critical dimension to this is time. We're looking at how do we squeeze more into the same short amount of time, and I'm not sure that that's what people are able to do. So it goes back again to looking at what's right for a particular student and what has to do in terms of a quality relationship and situation. It's not just a matter of learning facts, and certainly now with the kinds of resources we have online, facts seem to be no longer the most important thing to stick in our heads.
Well, I do find it fascinating that there are countries like Hungary, for instance, where music education is considered to be a foremost subject area to study. The arts are considered to be as important as any other area. And in fact, students, by the time they may be in grade 8, by our schooling standards, are able to compose. So it's not just playing a simple recorder piece. They're able to understand the intricacies of the actual music, which is actually benefiting all the other core subjects that they are still taking. I mean, they're still taking the same subjects that we are, but they have that additional component and are often able to play more than one instrument, plus they've been able to develop their voice. And on top of that, they're learning more than one language. Often there's 2 or 3 languages learned in the school system. So it really does make me wonder, we have all this potential, but it seems like within the school we're still so squeezed for time to get all of these curriculum areas addressed in language arts, in English, in social studies, history, in math, science, and yet we're missing all those additional components that other countries have seemed to figure out. Now, I don't know if it's the addition of hours to the school day, if that's the solution, if it's an addition of a day in the week, because I'm not in their school system. I don't know how they're managing that time. But why is it that we haven't come up with a similar measure for our students to get these additional classes, these additional benefits to their education?
You know, we've gone through so many things during the last 100 years that impact on education, starting with some of the notions about who deserves to be educated, who has the potential for being educated, and moving on to situations such as preparation of so many of our high school students for university. We're starting to see some changes, certainly in our community, where very bright, gifted people are deciding that they can enjoy a livelihood working in fields such as plumbing that seem to have been demeaned over the years. We're also looking at the influence of other countries, particularly the United States, and they've been going through some difficult challenges themselves in trying to deal with things economically and in terms of a philosophy. We really rely to a large extent on our so-called experts, perhaps the guidance and administration in the schools, to tell parents what's best for them. And I would suggest that the parents, because they're busy, have allowed those voices to dominate. And I would love to see a situation where the parents themselves would say yet again, we need to have something that better suits our notions of the experiences and a quality education for our children. My niece and nephews went through the open school here in Saskatoon, and the young people I worked with from the open school seemed to have a greater confidence coming into high school, a different sense of relationship with adults. And so I think that there's been a great deal of research dealing with these things, and that if the administration will take a look at them and see the kinds of ways that the school experience can be modified, that we stand a hope of being able to include more of those things. It's sometimes interesting. I found out many years ago the impact of the bus schedule on the schools, where we had to respond to when the buses could pick up the students after school, which meant stopping earlier in the day and shortening our noon hours, which of course was an important time for co-curricular rehearsal time. So there are lots of these factors that people need to become aware of, and certainly we would like people to become, first of all, better informed. And I think that there are a lot of schools that are making an incredible effort to improve things, but there's also the idea of how do we work together with the parents, with the teachers, with the students, so that the education for that particular child is set more optimally, if we can put it that way. The idea of everybody going along the same path is certainly not something that I think we need to be dealing with.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I've been really interested in everything that you've had to say. We're going to have to cut our conversation at about this point so that I can have the chance to make sure this appears on YouTube and into my blog. I thank you for spending the time. We've covered lots of great ideas. I don't know that there's ever going to be a true, tried and true solution to this, but it's definitely something that we need to keep awareness of, and definitely things that people need to keep talking about, and parents need to keep pushing for, so that their children have these opportunities, which is really what they are, is opportunities to grow not only as a student, but as a person, and to understand that the arts are just as valuable as any other piece of the curriculum in any other subject.
In the best schools, they're the foundation for everything else that goes on.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again. It's been nice talking to you.
My pleasure. Good to talk to you, and thank you for this initiative.
Thank you.